broadcasting live from the Business Radio X studios in Houston, Texas. It's time for Houston Business Radio. Now, here's your host.
Hello, Houston. Trisha Stutzel here, bringing you another episode of Houston Business Radio. I'm so excited to introduce you to my guest today, JJ Hollie, Business Performance Advisor with Insperity, past president and CEO of the Woodlands Area Chamber of Commerce, Army National Guard veteran, and longtime advocate for business and community leadership here in Texas. Raised in a military family, JJ had the unique experience of living around the world while growing up, including time in Holland and Japan, before beginning a career that would span public service, military service, telecommunications, chamber leadership, and business consulting. Over the years, he's become known for building strong business communities, developing leaders, and helping organizations grow through people-first leadership. Today, through his work with Insperity, nonprofit leadership, and community engagement efforts, he continues helping businesses improve performance while staying connected to purpose and service. He is also a certified project management professional, an Ironman Texas finisher, and someone deeply passionate about leadership, veterans, and creating meaningful connections in the communities he serves. JJ, welcome to the show.
Wow, Trisha, that was a phenomenal introduction. You made me sound a lot better than I really am. Thank you.
That's not true. Not true.
I'll try to live
not
up to
true
it
at all. All right. So JJ, tell us what else you want us to know about you.
Gosh, a couple of things that came to mind is I not only were we living in Holland and Japan, and one thing I really love about my parents in the whole military background was wherever we were at, we didn't just stay on base or stay in the living room. They got out. We were even stationed in Fort Riley, Kansas one time, and we thought, oh, but there's nothing there. What were we wrong? I mean, we just drove all over. We saw Custer's Last Stand. We saw, Mount Rushmore. We just kind of used it as a base to go all around. And one of the places we went to was Alaska. And I actually went to high school up there and loved that. Probably the most spectacular place, anybody could ever see, with the glaciers and the mountains and neat stuff.
Oh, I love that. So how do you think that experience growing up with that military influence has really led you to where you are today?
I think to a large extent, it's sort of molded my personality, where I'm more extroverted. I had somebody define introvert versus extrovert to me, and they said introverts get their batteries recharged by being alone and kind of relaxing and just being solitary. To me, I will fall asleep if I do that. I'm so glad we're meeting here at 2:45 on a Monday afternoon, because you're charging me up, and that's what it does to extroverts. Is when they're talking to people and engaging with people, that's when they get their batteries charged. So you're helping my Monday afternoon just go a lot better. So thank you.
We're recharging your batteries right now. If only we had 3 or 4 more people in the room, it would be that.
That probably started having lightning go out of my ears or something.
So taking that experience and thinking about that extroversion and how you recharge your batteries, how does that all play into the way you think about leadership and community and adaptability?
I think I've been really fortunate with the leaders that have been both good and bad examples for me, if that makes sense. I think sometimes when you don't have the best experience with leaders, and you're like, I don't ever want to be that way when I'm in that position. And I think my first professional experience was working for a guy named Charlie Wilson, who was a U.S. congressman in East Texas, and they wrote a book about him called Charlie Wilson's War, and he's kind of, I don't know if I'd say famous, but definitely infamous for his nickname was Good Time Charlie. And Charlie's, I think his being a congressman, I think we're all sort of, negative about politicians and stuff, and One thing about Charlie that struck me was how genuine and authentic he was, and how much he cared about us as the staff, and then also how much he cared about constituents in the second congressional district and beyond. I remember, I graduated college and I was 21 years old. This is my first job. Of course, I thought I was the best thing since sliced bread. And, I had to learn some humility, which I still struggle to learn, I think. But it was just Charlie and I. It was my job to kind of drive him around the district in this Ford Travel motorhome. And he was giving a speech in Woodville. Anybody from East Texas knows it's not Woodville, it's Woodville. And he said this, what I thought was just a line. And he said, before Social Security and senior centers, people just sat on their front porches and waited to die because they had no activity, and they were, it wasn't a healthy way to be, so they were just nothing to do, bored, unless they had some family members come visit them, how are they getting regular meals, different things like that. And I thought, when he said it, that's a great line. That's really going to, be emotionally impactful. And we got on the bus, and I had only worked with this guy for maybe, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks. And it was just him and I in the bus. And I said, Charlie, that was a great line about people sitting on their front porch waiting to die. And he looked at me. He was mad. I remember this like it was yesterday. And he was like fired me out of his head. And he said, JJ, that is true. They really didn't have food. They didn't have services. They didn't have any engagement. And I thought, oh, wait a second. This is a different ball game. Mm-hmm. And that was just a great leadership lesson. I think you got to, care about your people. I think when we're military experienced, the ones that have you got the best leaders when they really care about you.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's dive a little bit into that human interaction connection. I know the last conversation that you and I had a lot to do with that. And I value that as well as you do. So I would love to hear from you, how important is this intentional relationship building for leaders today?
One of the things that I've always enjoyed about any stage of my professional career is I get to always talk to people. And whether it's people that I'm working with in the same company or organization or office, or whether they be voters or vendors or prospects or clients, I love this line in Ted Lasso about you should always be curious and believe, and I think if you have a genuine curiosity, and I love sitting down with businesses or anybody really, and I love hearing about their stories and where they come from and what they did and, where they went on vacation and what they liked about vacation and, what kind of food they ate and, how many kids they have and all that. People have such interesting lives, and it's really kind of cool to get and listen, sit and listen to people and kind of get that background on what they've done.
What would you say to those that are listening today that don't fit the extroverted personality? They like to recharge their batteries alone. What would you say to them about networking and being curious and always be curious?
I think you've got to know yourself, right? And I know that when it's 3:00 on Monday afternoon and I'm a little, droopy-eyed or something because I haven't talked to anybody, I pick up the phone and call somebody, or I get on a podcast, something like that. And I think if you know yourself, hey, that I'm not outgoing, I feel uncomfortable, being in a business reception setting, and go, you know what, I'm just going to have to be uncomfortable, and it's going to be okay. And hopefully you find somebody who may even be like you, and you go and stand next to them and go, hey, do you hate being here as much as I do? And if they say yes, then you've already made a friend, and you guys can be your own little support group, And another thing I like about business is I think the more people in business, the easier business is. it's so relationship oriented, getting to know somebody, who they are, what they do, who are the people in their network, who are the people in your network, how can you get them together, and just it's just nice when you are doing business with people that you know and you trust and you like, and especially if it's a win-win-win situation, then everybody makes money, everybody gets to serve their customers the best way, and everybody's happy.
Yeah, absolutely. And if a room full of people is not for you, then go to a smaller room, right? And just get started.
Yeah, there are so many, and of course I've spent 10 years at a chamber of commerce, and
Mhm.
one thing we tried to do was create different avenues for different businesses, types of people. Sometimes we even have Zoom calls or something, or smaller committee meetings, so you're not in a room with 100 other people at 5:30 in the afternoon, and try to make it a little bit easier for everybody to find a way to get involved where they can be. I'm not going to say comfortable, because sometimes you gotta. I'm still trying to work on that. How do I kind of get out of my comfort zone and not be in a rut and do things better and different, and just being curious, but help them to get comfortable being uncomfortable, I guess.
Yeah, I've heard that a time or two. And there is something for everyone. And what I heard you say that I think is so important is we have to be part of a community. We can't sit as a business owner, business leader on an island all on our own and expect to
Mhm.
be as good as we want to be. We've got to get out and we have to build that community.
I had an older friend of mine. I think by the time I met him, he was already in his 80s. And he said, JJ, if you want to be successful and live a long, productive life and be healthy, he says, you've got to, what is it that he said? He said, you've got to socialize, you've got to exercise, and you got to have a purpose.
Oh,
And if you get out there and do that, you know, chances are you're going to be all right.
Socialize, exercise, and have a purpose. I
Yep.
love that so much.
Mhm.
Tell me more about being the business performance advisor at Insperity.
Well, this is just another continuation of something that I love to do, which is go and meet businesses and sit and talk to them about, especially smaller businesses. If they've got 20 employees, 30 employees, they started this business, maybe they just started it, or it's 5 or 10 years old. And it's like you're talking to them about their baby. I mean, they started this because they had a passion for doing something that they were really good at. And then how did it takes a lot of guts not to just, work for another organization, but go out on your own and do your own deal and kind of build your own universe. And I love hearing people say, how they got the idea, how they started it, what are some of the peaks and valleys that they go through. I've got one great friend. His name is Josh Sherry. He's a serial entrepreneur, and he has this psychological timeline that is just hilarious, because you waffle between, wow, we're making so much money, we're going to take over the world, to, oh no, we can't pay our bills on Friday, and there's just all this up and down. It's such a psychological game ish. And if you're not prepared going in, that A, you're going to have it happen to you, and B, that happens to everybody else. Everybody I've talked to that started a business, and I've had that in my professional career, that success is not a linear, nice, straight line where it just goes up. There are these huge swings, and there's so many different reasons for those. And I had somebody tell me the other day that you have to be resilient. In the perm position that I'm in, you have to be resilient. If you're talking to people and you're trying to, get them to sign a contract with you, you're going to have to get some no's. And then you're like, why are you telling me no? You just described every reason why you needed this. And at the end of the day, if you really are, look, I want to help you. I want to find a way to where we can take some of the stuff off your plate, so you can focus on the things that you got into business for in the first place. You don't want to spend your time doing timesheets. You don't want to spend your time, managing HR policies and handbooks and things. You want to do your business.
Absolutely. Do what you got into business for and let
Mhm.
someone else do the rest. Okay, so I know people already want to connect with you, JJ. What is the best way for folks who are listening today to connect with you or learn more?
Probably the best way is my email address, and it is J Hollie, Hollie, at Insperity.com.
And of course, you guys, I'll put that in the show notes. If you happen to be sitting at your computer, you can just point and click and send that email over to JJ. I am sure he would love to have that conversation with you.
Mhm.
As you were talking about the support that you give to small businesses and the work that you're doing with Insperity, I was reflecting on all of the journey that you've been on and how you've been in public service, military service, corporate leadership, nonprofit work, and now business performance advising with Insperity. What are some of the lessons that you've learned around leadership as you've moved through your journey?
Mm. Wow. There are so many mistakes I've made.
Okay.
So I'm not going to try to cover them all because we'd go into tomorrow. Uh, I think one of the things that I learned is that I think I'm communicating clearly, but this is all for us. This is personal and professional, right? I think I've
Yeah.
said the most clearest thing in the world to my significant other, and then something completely happens differently. And I thought, well, wait a second, that's not what I said. And somebody taught me one time. I think it was actually a leadership seminar, and they said, I want everybody in this room to take out a piece of paper, take out your pen or pencil, and draw a bow. And so we all did that and drew a bow. Some of us drew a bow like a bow and arrow.
Uh-huh.
Some of us drew a bow like on a Christmas present.
Uh-huh.
And he said, look, I very clearly communicated to you, right? Obviously, to draw a bow. But look at what all you did. And so
Uh-huh.
you've got to have kind of that feedback loop. And I think that's another kind of lesson in leadership is that you've got to make it okay for your people to come talk to you and go, I think I understand what you said, but I want to make sure. And you want it to happen naturally in an authentic way to where people feel like they can come talk to you. But when I was CEO at the chamber, one of the things that they knew they could really, annoy me with, we picked on each other all the time, so they would do this, and they would be like, well, you're the CEO, so we'll do it your way. And I said, oh my God, if you're relying on me to do that, no, 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 no. If I'm the smartest guy in the room, then we are all in the wrong room.
Mhm.
And sometimes you have a new employee and they're going through those rough patches early on as they figure you out, you figure them out. They start to, the honeymoon period is over. They start to face some real challenges. And I would always say, look, we picked you. We picked you to come in here and bring your history, your intellect, your creativity, all the stuff that we liked about you in the interview process, and gave you an office, gave you a computer, gave you a phone, everything. We did that because we picked you. And by the way, you'll make a mistake, and that's okay too. I'd rather you make an mistake, than not do something. And that was, I was told that before, and it just gave me confidence to go out and give things a shot.
Yeah.
I remember one thing from my Army days. We were op 4 for this OCS candidate class, and some of these OCS guys, they have identity infantry training or stuff, and we set up this ambush for them, and they just we started to shoot at them with blanks, and they just froze, and just every one of them, we lit all of them up, all the laser tag things go off,
Yeah.
all the beeps, you've all heard that if you've been in basic training, and it was bad, and we had the AAR, the after action report afterwards, and we're meeting there, and our platoon sergeant said, "You guys don't say a thing." He used a little stronger language than that. If I hear somebody giggle, you're all going to get smoked with. And I remember one of the things that the instructor said to these guys is said, the worst possible thing you can do in an ambush is stay where you're at.
Mhm.
In fact, the safest place to be is to charge into the ambush and get on the other side.
Mhm.
And maybe doctrine has changed since then. I don't know, because that was 25, 30 years ago. But one lesson I took away from that is when you're faced with something, you can't just freeze. You've got to figure out, okay, what am I going to do differently? Maybe I'm not being successful right now. What can I do different? Who can I talk to? I don't care if they're younger, older, more experienced, less experienced. Who can I talk to and learn something new and go, okay, I'm going to give that a shot. And maybe it makes me uncomfortable, but you got to try it.
Yeah. Okay. I see this theme coming through everything that we're talking about today, being in the right room, finding the right people, asking the right questions, and getting comfortable with being uncomfortable sometimes, and learning lessons, right? Sometimes we are going to make mistakes and we're going to learn from those things. You and I talked about this in our last conversation as well, about supporting veterans in business leadership. What strengths do you think veterans bring to organizations that business owners are sometimes overlooking?
I think it's discipline.
Yeah.
That's the big thing. I mean, if you've gone through basic training and you've made it through, and you've gone through AIT and all that, and you've done, getting up at 4:30 every morning, and you've done this, and you just understand that sometimes you got to do things that you don't want to do to make things happen. And I think you can just always count on a veteran.
Yeah, absolutely. We know how to get up, get dressed, and go to work.
We
may not know what to wear unless you tell us.
No, it's funny you say that. I remember, and I was in the National Guard. I didn't do active duty. I wasn't in the regular Army. But I remember getting out of basic training after 8 weeks of basic and then 5 weeks of AIT for infantry school at Fort Benning. And I remember getting home, and I remember looking at my closet and going, wow, look at all those colors in there. It's not green or brown or black. There's reds and blue.
Like, what do I wear?
I had no idea what to wear. Yeah, I didn't know, and I had no idea what to. I was like, I've done the same thing for 4.5 months. I don't know what to do.
That's right. Well, you did serve in the military, so thank you for your service. And it's not
Thank you.
Not the real Army anyway. Okay. I'd like to, if it's okay, maybe just take a little turn here, because another thing that came up when we had our conversation before is this idea of work-life separation or integration and intentional living. I'd love to hear your take on what does that look like for you, and what would you tell everyone else when thinking about living intentionally?
I think that's the key word, is you've got to be intentional about it. I think, when we have jobs like, what we do, there's always an element of it's always there. It doesn't matter if it's nights or weekends or whatever. And it's not like, I was whining one time to my dad, who's going to be 88 this year. He grew up sharecropping in Mississippi, and that's a part. He went into the Army so he could have an easier life, and I was complaining to him one day about, how difficult, quote unquote, my life was, because I had a dinner one night and a breakfast on the next morning, and I was tired and being whiny. And he said, that sounds really tough, and where'd you go to dinner at again? And I said, well, I had to meet some people at True Lugs, which is, this 5-star steak restaurant. And then breakfast was somewhere else nice. And he said, well, that sounds really, really difficult. And this is what's great about parents is, perspective. And he said, let me know, how many bags of cotton did you pick today? I thought, yep, that's what I did. I thought, okay. And to a certain extent, yeah, I mean, that's a physically demanding job, right? I mean, you're out there in the heat and you're picking cotton. And these are more mentally demanding positions, I think, that what I've got now. So you've got to give yourself, my commute is 20, 30 minutes home. And I try to use that to kind of, package everything up make sure I've got a plan for tomorrow so that I am not sitting at home and at dinner thinking about what I'm supposed to be doing. So you can be present where you're at and talking to people and talking to your family and your significant other and going, Kate, how was your day and how was school? Another one, my buddies that I work with, last year he was very, very busy and he neglected to take a vacation. And this year, he fortunately had a good talk with his wife, and she made it very clear that he was not going to, skip vacations, and they were going to do vacations even on their own, and have someone, grandparents come and take care of the small kids. So he's already had, 3 kind of mini vacations this year, and just long weekend type stuff. But he said it is so refreshing and so much more connection, because you can look up, and we've all had relationship issues, and sometimes that happens whenever you look up and you forgot to maintain a connection.
Yeah, absolutely. And for those of you who are listening who are thinking to yourself, gosh, I really need a vacation, this is where an organization like Insperity can come in and help give you some time back. So as we wrap up, JJ, and I know our time has gone by so fast, I would love for you to tell us who, if somebody's listening and they're not sure if they're a good client for Insperity or if they're a good in a position to have a conversation with you, how would you describe your clients?
And thank you for that, Tricia. I would tell people that are in a business with, an employee size is important, but it's not important. That's where I was going to start, but I think I'm going to start instead with saying it's really more about a mindset and a culture than it even is a type of business or a size of business. But if you really make your employees a priority, if you really have a growth mindset, if you really want to improve, if you really see the value and going, you know what, I'm not the best at that. I'm gonna give that piece of our business to an expert that is going to be supportive and going to help us grow and is going to deal with issues that they deal with every day, not once or twice a year, but they've dealt with it every day. And the nice thing is now you can take that vacation, and instead of getting a call on Saturday morning, that call can go to Insperity. And that call, that employee can talk to the person that's assigned to them, that knows their business, and goes, oh yeah, here's the answer to that. In 10 minutes, 15 minutes, they're done. And you don't even know about it because you're on vacation and enjoying yourself and recharging and reconnecting. So then when you get back, you're ready to work.
Yes, I love that. All right. So for those of you who are listening and you are ready to take your vacation, you should reach out to JJ and have a conversation. I promise it won't hurt. He is a lot of fun to talk to. So give us your email. Give us your email address one more time, JJ.
It's J. Hollie, HOLLIE @insperity.com.
Perfect. This has been so much fun. Thank you for joining me today.
Yeah, we always have fun conversations. This is really nice. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. All right, you guys, that's all the time we have for today. If you found value in this conversation, please share it with a fellow entrepreneur, veteran, or Houston business leader ready to grow. Be sure to follow, rate, and review the show. Of course, it helps us reach more bold business minds just like yours. And your business, your leadership, and your legacy are built one intentional step at a time. So stay inspired, stay focused, and keep building the business and the life you deserve.